So again, friends, here is the second of Glyn's two guitars he's bought in today. American Strat, I imagine it's a standard. Nothing is shouted out saying it's a deluxe. 2-point fulcrum tremolo, no strings on it. Problem with this is a lot of wear on the frets down here. I've just had a look at it and he says I know it's going to need a fret level. Well, I'm thinking it might need a refret because these divots on these frets might be a bit too deep. And the problem is, if they're too deep, if we get below a certain height, once we've levelled them, we can't recrown them because we can't get a file in because the frets are too low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the frets. I'm going to measure the width of the neck. I'm going to measure the width of the neck with the fret and without the fret just to get a balance, see how high the frets are. They look to be probably a millimetre, maybe a little bit over, but I'm worried that if we level all the things, we can't just level 3 frets or 7 or 8 frets where the divots are and leave the rest. We've got to level the whole lot, and all of the frets have to come down to the level of these. And if we go below 0.8 on all these, I'm not going to get my crowning file in. It's going to hit the wood or the lacquer before it hits the fret, and I'm not going to be able to recrown them. And I've just told him that. And the problem with these guitars, refretting these, is the lacquer goes, here's your fret, say this is your cross section of your fret there, look, there's your cross section, and your lacquer builds up to the side of the fret there and then comes down onto the wood. So I've got cut through all that lacquer, and chances are it's gonna crack and split, and it's a right ball ache. I always recommend that we re-lacquer a neck after a refret on a lacquered board, but we can get around not doing that. But it can be messy. I always recommend with lacquer, and I have to send guitars away for lacquer, and I send them away to my mate, Clive Eastwood over at Beaver Guitars there. And I have to ship them now because he's not in Grantham anymore, he's moved down to Norfolk. He was in Grantham before, which is 35 miles from here, 33 miles from here it is. And I drive over there back there about 130 miles. And I charge a bit of extra for petrol, 20 quid for petrol there back, maybe 30 quid, whatever. But it's too far to go now, so I have to ship next to him. And there's a shipping cost, and there's a spraying cost, and he's got a cure, and he's got to polish it all, and blah 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 blah. And you're looking at another 75 quid on top. But that said, it is worth doing. It's an American Fender Strat. Don't skimp on these. Absolutely no point in skimping. If it needs a refret, give it a refret. But I am going to see if I can do a fret level, we're going to do 4 or 5 years out of it. So I'm going to see first. I've said to Glyn, I'll get a fret level and see how high we are, and see if we've got enough to got enough on these frets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my caliper out. Now, I've just been talking to him, so how much is a refret? Well, I told him it's going to be 225 quid plus the nut plus the fret wire. That's 250. That's not including lacquering. With lacquering, you're going to be looking at 325 quid. I don't think 325 quid for a refret is expensive. I think it's fine. So refret. It's going to last you 30 years. Well, mine are because of the fret wire I use. I use 25% nickel silver, hardest nickel silver fret wire on the planet. It will last twice as long as standard fret wire. In fact, 3 times as long as standard fret wire. Standard fret wire is 12% nickel silver. Hard fret wire is 18% nickel silver. The super hard stuff I use is 25% nickel silver. So it should last. Should outlast the neck by rights. But people say, oh, it's too much. Well, it is too much. It isn't. 300 quid's not too much for a refret, not nowadays. It's a lot of work, mate. I should be charging, I do charge £35 an hour. That's the standard rate. Which it should be. You know, it's what we're worth. Our mechanic charges 55 quid an hour for labour. 55 quid an hour. You're talking about, you know, pay a man what it's worth. Anyway, let's have a look. Digital caliper here. Just going to measure right in the centre. I know the neck gets thinner and thicker in places, but we've got 20.21 there. I'm going to measure with fret. 22.03. We've got 21 there. 21.17. 22.16. So the frets at this end are a millimetre high. Now that's okay, so long as we don't have to remove more than 0.2 millimetre. I'm going to measure another one because we may just get away with a fret level. 20.73 without the fret, 21.78 with the fret. So the frets 20.74, 21.9 there, 20.9 there, so 20.84, 21.9. So we've got just a nudger over a millimetre. We may just have enough on these frets to level. So I'm going to measure. I'm going to have to get the nut off regardless. Removing the nut on these can be a bitch because you see, lacquered over, so it can be really, really difficult to get the nut off. I've got to take the nut off. So I'm going to message Glenn, let him know I'm going to go with a fret level for now. May be a refret, but we'll see. Well, I'll measure the frets again and I'll check with a crowning file just to see if we can get a level done. So anyway, fret level, complete fret level on this means the nut out, nut back in. Could be messy. I hate taking nuts out of lacquered boards, lacquered necks, but it's got to be done. Might get away with a level, so let's see how we are. I'm going to talk to Glenn anyway, and I'll come back and let you know how we get on. So I've messaged Glenn, told him the story. I am recommending we go for a fret level. Regardless, I have to remove the nut. I have no choice. Getting the nuts out on these could be a right bind because I've got to cut the lacquer this side, lacquer this side, and I've got to cut round the lacquer on the nut area itself, and we can chip. I don't think you're going to see, but the lacquer covers this part of a nut up to the top of the neck. In fact, over the top of the neck. So the lacquer's been sprayed over the nut. It's very, very difficult to get these out without damaging this area. I'm going to cut in just inside the nut and hopefully we're going to get it out clean. Same on this side, it's been sprayed over. So I need to get a good sharp X-Acto blade or knife and cut around that, cut down this side, and we're going to stick it in a vise and we're going to gently tap that nut out. Ideally, I want that nut to come out clean because I can use it again. I want to use it again. If I'm having to replace a nut, it's going to be another 40-45 quid on top because I've got to carve the nut from a blank and blah 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 blah. I've let Glenn know the story. What I am going to do, regardless, is I'm going to remove the neck because it saves me hauling the body about and possibly dinging or damaging the body. So I'm just going to whip the camera down on the guitar. You can see what's happening. And then if I'm working on just the neck, I'm only going to have the neck exposed, aren't I? There's no point having the body out on show and possibly damaging it. Great tool, by the way. This is more powerful than a regular electric screwdriver. Electric screwdrivers are normally torque, it's normally 3 Newton meters or something daft like that. This is actually 5. It's made by Von House. Cost me about 25 quid delivered, I think, and it's one of these gubbins. I think you can turn it around somewhere. Oh, you press that, do you? Is that the power? Oh, there you go. And you can have it that way on like a normal screwdriver, or you can have it like the gun, phaser gun. I like it that route. But anyway, nice piece of kit that, but about a year. I think it cost me £24.99 delivered. Right, again, pot, everything in a pot. There you go. Neck's fallen off. The neck says, is there a date on it? Feb 15th, 2008. There you go. I thought it was a 2008. There you go. 2008, American. Date stamp in here. Feb 21st, 2008. So this was stamped within 6 days of the neck. So there you go. So that all ties in nice. Oh, what a bitch that's going to be. Okay, I'm going to get a sharp knife. I'm going to put a new blade in my sanding knife. I'm going to cut round. I'm going to stick this in a vise. You're not going to see it. I'm not going to show you anyway. I might turn the camera around on it in a bit. I'm going to get myself a nice blade cut round this area, cut round this area, cut along there, cut along there. I'm going to stick it in a vise, I'm going to turn the camera around, and we're going to knock this nut out, and all being well, it won't break anything. So you pray for me, I'll pray for myself, and I'll be back soon. So I've removed everything from the neck. We've got it clamped in a vise, all padded, all secure. I've cut around the edge of a nut. The good thing about this is it does slightly damage this area, not damage this area, but it does try and chip the lacquer. We can always run, once I put his nut back in, we can run a bead of super glue just down that back end there, and we'll be absolutely fine. Just gonna, again, I've already cut round these areas around the edge of a nut with a sharp blade. Tiny bit of chipping under this one. Glenn knows about it, I've told him. He says, you can't help that, Vic. I totally understand where you're going with that. Regarding a refret, we're not going, it was happy to go with a refret, but I've said, look, let's go first with a fret level, see where we are, because if there's enough material on those frets to level, we'll go with a level. Just cutting this far side. There's quite a bit, look at this, look, bits of lacquer I've had to cut off, look, I'll show you. Hopefully you can see that there. Front of my hand there, a few bits of lacquer I've had to cut off, so all being well, we'll be able to just drift this out nice and gently. I'm going to take a flat-ended screwdriver and I'm going to tap it. And I want to take a screwdriver that's not wider than the nut. And this one isn't. So all we're going to do, I'm going to try and coax it out. I'm going to use a nylon end of my fretting hammer there. And all being well, we won't damage the knot, we can use it again. And there you go, how easy was that? And that's come straight out, look, we've just drifted that straight out, 1 or 2 taps on the hammer, it's come out beautifully clean. We have a nice clean nut removal. I was telling Glenn, I says, look, it could possibly damage it, but 99 times out of 100 we come out clean. And there we are, we've come out beautifully clean. How's that? How's that for everyone? Let's have a look that side. So yeah, that little bit of praying we did beforehand. I've prayed, Glenn's prayed. I am a Christian. I've had a good little pray. Glenn says I'll pray as well. And that's it, that's fantastic. So that's how happy about that. So we are going to go with a fret level. So yes, the nuts came out lovely and clean. This side, not even touch the lacquer, look, we cut right around the lacquer there. This side, I don't even think you can see it. No, you can't. And again, this side, look at that. Beautiful and clean. The top nice and clean. Like I said, we can run a bead of super glue just down each side once the nut is back in. But I think you get more, see more of the frets now and the indentations in these frets, especially down this end. They're not mega deep. We're just going to have enough. Glenn was happy to go with a refret. His son texted me back because his dad were driving, and he says, my dad says, yeah, go for a refret. I says, you can ring in 20 minutes. I says, yeah, of course you can. And he rung me. I says, look, don't worry about it. We're not going with a refret. We're going to go with a fret level, see how we get on. So I'm going to level the frets. I'm thinking if we remove less than 0.2 millimeters, which I think we're going anyway, we can get away with a level, and that's great, because I've told Glenn, I said, look, if we're refretting this, it's going to be 300 quid, because I'm going to start charging people for relacquering boards, and I'm going to start getting them relacquered. I send them off to Mr. Eastwood over at Beaver Guitars there, and with postage and that, 75, it's going to be £75 to get these resprayed after a refret. So I'm going to amend my prices. The thing is, the reason why we struggle so much with refretting a lacquered board is the lacquer builds up at the side of a fret, and when I have to cut the lacquer, take frets out, and it always chips the lacquered area. When you put frets back in, you always got little tiny chipped areas if you look that close, and I think it looks untidy, it looks unprofessional. So in the future, I'm really upping my prices for lacquered fingerboards. The rosewood board, not a problem, same price, 200 quid, 25 quid for your wire, and you know, 225 quid for a standard rosewood. But when you're looking at lacquer boards like this, you're going to be looking at 300, maybe even 325 pounds. It's just a lot more work, and to get the job done professionally and to do yourself justice, you're going to need them respraying afterwards. Anyway, so that's where we're going. So I am going to get everything prepped up, ready for fret leveling. I have 2 guitars of Glenn's to do. I'm going to start on the Strat. We're just going to concentrate on this one on this video, and I've got another video of the Nick Thompson signature Ibanez I'm doing for his son. You can see me way back here. I've moved over to the other bench because something very, very strange about the electrics on this guitar, and I was fiddling about with the knobs just seeing if there was scratching anywhere, and I noticed in the 10 position on the second tone knob, or what's normally the middle tone, it's got an indent at 10, which means it locks into place, which means it's a no-load pot. So a no-load pot, when it's on full, like that, it's just carrying all the load and everything, but you turn it to 9, and it does something. There's an indentation, it's like it locks, and when you unlock it, it normally does something. So I thought maybe it's a blend pot, meaning in position 5 there or position 4 with these 2 pickups you can blend in the bridge, and again in position 1 there or position 2 with these 2 you can blend in the neck pickup, but it's not wired up as a blend pot. So I do not know what it is, I do not know what it does, and I'm going to have to go and do some digging. Something else interesting I found out about the guitar is the date stamp in here is the 29th of February 2008. It's a leap year guitar. Don't come around too often, so yeah, fantastic. But I do not know, it's slightly different pot as well. We've got 2 CTS vintage here and a CTS flat back there. It doesn't say no load, but I know it's a no load pot because of the indentation on the fork. So I'm actually going to take some pictures, go on the Stratocaster forums and find out what that is. As far as I know, it's a 2008 standard, this guitar. I don't know anything else about it. I've rung Glenn, talked to his lad. They don't know anything other than it's a 2008 standard. It's not a deluxe model, but I don't know what that indent's all about. It's not been modded. The bridge pickup has not been modded into the tone circuit, so it's not that. I'm just wondering what it is. It's not wired as a blend pot, but I'd have thought it would be a blend pot. So I'll wire my blend pots in. But anyway, I'm going to do some digging. I'm going to find out. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to get everything set up for levelling these frets. We are a slightly lower light at this time of the night, but I do have my LED spotlight on my night table behind me. And when I tilt it a certain way, it does pump out some lumens. So I think we've got enough light to carry on. And what I'm going to do is going to show how I set up for levelling on this piece of MDF. I've had this piece of 30mm MDF for a number of years, and I always I adjusted it for bolting next to it, certain necks, just by drilling some holes in there, and that is how I fit it to the board. And what I do is, I've got some business cards all taped together under there to just lift it from the board itself. And what that does is it gives me an area at this side where it's not on the board, and that means I can prop it up with business cards underneath, and it enables me to alter the truss rod to get the neck absolutely straight or dead straight. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do, because I'm going to be levelling these frets in one fell swoop, and the neck is not straight, it's got some backbone in there, so I'm going to need a 1/8 of an inch Allen wrench, and I'm just going to slacken off truss rod, try and get this neck dead straight. Well, not try and get it dead straight, I'm going to get it dead straight. But I don't have to get it dead straight just on the truss rod. I can actually prop up underneath with some business cards if I'm slightly out. I'm just looking now, I do believe I have a light pen somewhere. Oh, it's do things on, so the batteries are flat. Got this job here. I'll normally shine that behind and have a look, see if there's a gap. And there's not, and I'm quite good then. That neck is dead straight. That's fantastic. Just check in certain areas with the pen just to see if there's any gap on there. And lo and behold, got that neck dead straight. You stick some new batteries in that. I've had it turned on all day, it's been in the bloody pot up there turned on. I think it takes 2 AAA batteries. I've got some, I've got rechargeable ones, they're always charged up. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some of my business cards. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide them under. I always do that. Get that off here out of the way. If that was on a guitar body, I'd have scratched the body there. I'm just going to slide these cards underneath. Still need another one. One more. Okay, let's try that. I think that's just about enough there. And that gives me, look at that, that's beautiful. That gives me the level I need. And that's perfect. And this is not going to move about because there's some weight to this. So that neck is solid on there. We've got propped up underneath. I could stick a clamp on the end of there if I wanted to, but I've done in the past. In fact, I used to clamp it to the end of the board or the end of a bench like so. Get right to the end of the bench, put a clamp on this end, and it's not going to move anywhere. But no need to clamp if I don't have to. That's beautiful. So I'm going to let my neck settle 5-10 minutes. Just to be sure that I am straight. I've got a pen light, I'll put it rolling. He's not dead straight. Just going to give that a little turn. Just nip that. Let's have a look, see what I'm to get that much. Put a bit of back bow in there now. It's a case of measure 3 or 4 times, cut once. Right, quite happy with that. Very happy with that. I'm going to be going with Big Bertha. I have 2 levelling beams. I have one from GMI in Greece. I always mention this guy, Harris. I've seen him make these tools. I've seen him on his CNC machine. I've seen him on his milling machine making these precision straight edge GMI tools. It's got, I believe it's 240 on one side. Is it 340 or 360 on this side? And it's a nice levelling beam, but it's small. And I asked him if he did it, but I expected it to be bigger than this. I thought this is a little bit too small. And he doesn't do a bigger one, he says he would make one. So I went and got one from Crimson Guitars. Again, precision straight edge. Emery board. This is emery board on that one. I've started buying emery board for my own as well. It comes on a roll. Really, really easy to fit. I fit some, what I do is I fit some masking tape, inch wide masking tape. Then some inch wide double-sided sticky tape. And I put this emery board on top. And it's really easy to peel off because I'm only peeling off masking tape, look. And that peels off a lot easier than double-sided sticky tape. So I've got these set. This one I have 240 grit on the bottom, 400 grit on the top. So I start with a 240 and that's how I do my level. And this is a bigger one, it's much better. Just going to check that the radius is constant, that it's not a compound radius. Because if it's compound radius, we do actually level the frets slightly differently. We do it a different way. I'm thinking this is 9.5, could be 7 1/4. The guitar, by the way, it is a standard. The modifications to the electrics, it's just the standard Delta tone mod, which I used to offer as an option, but it does have a no load pot as standard. I never actually fitted a no load pot, I just did the Delta tone mod without the no load pot. So no load pot is just exactly what it says, it's no load, it's just everything, the pickup straight to the output jack, bridge pickup. Right, we are a 9.5 inch radius on there. We don't have a compound radius, I think we're 9.5. Let's just check a 7 1/4 while we're here. Right, yeah, we're 9.5 inch radius, kids. 9.5 inch radius, right, I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do really is level the lot. I don't really have to pen these because I know when these are level, but I'm going to pen them at this end just to make sure. It's very easy to take more off this end than that end because there's more frets up here, so you have to spend twice as long at this end as you do there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my permanent marker. Here it is. I'm just going to mark these frets up. I say I don't have to mark them up, but I'm going to, because that way I see how much material has been removed. And I could get my brand new radius sanding beams out from Philadelphia Tools. I reckon I may actually do that. But I think I've got 9.5 inch radius beam. My G&W ones I bought years ago have got paper on there already. So why paper another one up? Frets at this end are beautiful. It's just down there. And I could do a refret on this, it's just, I'm underselling myself. I'm putting prices up because I'm only going to offer refrets on lacquered boards if you're having it re-lacquered afterwards. And for re-lacquering, I'm going to charge another minimum 75 quid on top. And I'm not going to do it with that, I'm not going to offer it as an option because you take frets out with lacquer on, you're going to split the lacquer. It always looks crap if you don't respray them. So that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to talk to Danny at Leicestershire Luthier and see if he's going to offer the same service. He will do. We talk about things a lot and we normally offer exactly the same stuff at the same price. So I'm going to give Danny a ring in a bit. Danny and Natalie. Leicestershireluthiers.co.uk now, not Leicestershire Luthier. Danny and Natalie took over from Nigel Roberts when Nigel retired. Now Danny was Nigel Roberts' protege, his apprentice. For want of a better description. I think he's been with Nigel 10, 11 years and he's now taken over Leicestershire Luthier himself. Good guy, Danny. We spend time with him, we visit each other quite regularly when we're not in lockdown. We go for meals and we socialise. Yeah, good stuff. So here we go. 240 grit side I'm going to use for levelling. I'm just going to take the not straight edge again. Just checking the level, measure twice, measure 15 times, cut once, just make sure we're where we want to be. That's good enough. That's level enough for me, let's have a look there. So very, very tiny. Just a tiny amount, just there you go, it's probably a 64th of a turn. I can't see anything there. Ah, there you go, that's better. I could see light under there before, now I cannot. Go to the end. Well happy with that. So I'm now ready to level. And to level, I'm going to stand up. And I want to be, the reason I put the black pen on there is I'll see how much I'm removing from this end akin to how much I'm removing at that end. And I want the silver on the top to be the same width this end as that end. Otherwise, if we're wider here and narrower there, it means I'm removing more material from this end than this end. It means I'm not doing it straight, I'll be doing it at a slight angle. So anyway, 240 grit. And I'm going to give it some. And what we do is when we're doing a radius proper, we just follow in a straight line. So when we get to this edge here, we're going to be overlapping there. If it was a compound radius, we'd be going following the strings. So anyway, trying to keep it straight. My hand is pressing on this end, but not at this end. I'm just guiding at this end. Some frets here have not been touched, and that's very odd. It means we had high frets at this end. Keep going. Still not touch these frets in the middle here, but a lot of material at this end. So yeah, great stuff. Always good idea to give it a bit of a brush and turn it around the opposite way. Make sure we're still using the 240, which we are. And that's great because now all of the tops are silver. And there you go, we've removed a lot of material from there and there, but that's fantastic. Just want to feel that we've got these level, and we have there really. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So let me just show where we are. And I'm going to bring off of this up just to the camera, and you'll see all the dust we've removed there, all of the fret tops, and you see all the dust we removed at that end as well. So let me just show you there. So yeah, that's good. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pen up again, and I'm going to go with the 400 grit, which is going to remove these deep scratches, because 240 grit is going to cause more scratching or deeper scratches than 400. 400 is going to smooth these off and make it easier to polish them. I may think, wow, that was quick. Well, it is quick. Leveling frets is not a time-consuming job. It's a really easy job. It doesn't take long at all. Timing is not. The time is not in the leveling. It's in the polishing. Time's in the polishing. Right, permanent marker. Before I go across again with the leveling beam, I'm going to check the frets with fret rocker, just see if they are level along the whole length of the neck. They should be. We've removed a lot more at this end than that end because the frets here were higher, because they're not worn, but they are worn there. So I knew that, and I was always keeping an eye on the width of the silver across the top of the frets to make sure the width is the same. And it means we're going to get a consistent fret along the whole length. We're still just high enough here to be able to crown the frets. I'll give them a measure anyway. I'm thinking we've probably only moved just over 1/10 of a millimetre. But anyway, we're going to check that the frets are level. We notice I didn't check the frets are level before I did the job. That's because didn't matter whether we're level or not, or how many weren't level. We had to level the whole lot anyway, so there's no point in me checking for high ones in certain places. We may find a high one up here because we did have, it took quite a lot to start getting material removed, or getting to see any silver basically, but so far so good. Everything is level. I love levelling frets. I love crowning frets. It's the polishing that does my head in. Probably because I do so many of them. I ought to get a new appreciation for polishing and learn to love it a bit more, because it can really get on my wick. But anyway, these frets are fine. I'm going to work a late one tonight because my wife's a teacher, or she's training to be a teacher. She's on a training year, and she's working till 9 tonight. So I says I'll work till 9. I'll mirror what she does. We just had dinner together, and there you go. That's fantastic. Right, so I'm going to go with the 400 grit side now. I'm going to give out a brush. 400 grit again. I'm going to stand up to do this. Shouldn't take as long using the 400 because the frets should be level. And that's it, we're done. I'll put in there, just follow that line down. And there you go. And again, I'm going to offer to the camera just so you can see that all the fret tops are silver, like so. And that is the frets leveled. Just going to bring it to the edge. I'm not going to sweep this onto the floor, I'm just going to sweep it onto the, because I've actually vacuumed today. I'm just going to bring the bin over and sweep it straight into the bin. That done. So there you go, that is the frets level. I'm just going to check these frets to make sure we've got rid of all the grooves. And it seems like we have. And that really is pretty good. So there you go. So I'll just offer up to the camera again. And there you go, we have the frets levelled and all the grooves have gone from the frets. So that is the frets levelled. So now I'm going to check again to make sure I'm happy with everything. I'm really going to take my time. Nice and delicate. I'm going to go nice and delicate on this, just make sure that the frets are all level. So lightly, so if there's any rock at all, I will definitely feel it. If you hear any thundering or anything like that, my wife will see she's decided to walk about. She's like an elephant sometimes. It's not bad for an 8.5 stone girl, is it? Tramping about like I don't know what. We do have quite an old house actually, it's a 3-storey terrace. And it does make it's a noisy house. But anyway, these frets are looking to be pretty much spot on. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to tape up the fingerboard, leave just the frets exposed, ready for crowning, then ready for polishing. So crowning, what we've done is we've flattened the tops of the frets. The frets are rounded, they're like a dome shape, you know what I mean? And because we flatten the tops, we need to make them dome shaped again. So, looking this way, we have that shape, like a D on its side. But we flatten the tops and we need to re-dome them or re-crown them. So that's what we're going to do next. I always try to explain things in a way that somebody who doesn't know the job or has never seen my videos before will basically understand what I'm on about. Right, I'm just going to have a look at these height of these frets. Before we move on, I'm going to measure the height of the frets. Again, if you remember before we were at a millimetre height, I think we're going to be a little bit less. Anything over 0.8 millimetres will cheer me up because it means I've got enough there to recrown them. I'm recrowning them anyway. But I did say to Glenn, I'll do this and see how much we've got left. If we've got enough left, I'll recrown them rather than refret. So I'm just going to zero my digital caliper out. Hopefully I've got enough to get under there. So let's see where we are. No, I don't. So turn that off. I'm going to have to remove it from here. Because I do want to measure for the sake of this video. I can always put it back on here in 5 minutes. Thing is now, it doesn't have to be level now. The because I've leveled the frets, I can just whip this off, I can whip it straight back on in a few minutes. I can polish and crown the frets without it being on this MDF anyway. There you go. Just whip that out of the way for a few seconds. Because I want to measure the fret height. I don't know why I'm trying to do it on camera, I might as well just do it off camera. Okay, 21.03 without the fret. 22.06, so we've still got a millimetre left on there. So I've hardly removed anything at all, but don't forget moving the neck does get thinner. Okay, 21.85 on the fret and 21.05 fret. So we've just got 0.8 millimetres just. I've just got enough on there. Sorry, you guys take my word for it. 21.08 there. 22.01 there. So we've got 0.85 height there. Don't know if you're going to see. I can see where I've removed quite a bit of material. We've removed a bit of material, so we're down to just over 0.8 millimetres. Let me just stick that on there. Just see if we can make this. There you go. Get something under it, under this side. And now, to get a caliper where you can see. Okay, so I'm going to measure here. 20.93. Here I have 21.77. So we've got 20.8, 21.7. So we've got 0.9 height there. Here off the fret 20.81, on the fret 21.71. So we've got about 0.9 of a mil, probably a little bit less. So I think we've got enough there to crown. I'll tell you how we'll find out if there's enough for me to crown these frets. I'll go and grab my crowning file. I'm going to put a little bit of tape on there just to cover me in case it is not deep enough or the fret's not high enough. We've got just enough material to crown these frets. I would not want to go lower than 0.8. Any lower than this I'd have been refretting it. Can you see that? You can see that. Right, I'm going to grab the main crowning file that I use nowadays is the Z file by Stumac, and I need to be able to use this without it digging into the lacquer or the fingerboard. And I'll tell you what, I've just got enough. Ooh, I don't know, touch and go. Maybe a bit more work than I envisaged. Let's have a look, see where we are. I want a nice thin line down the centre. I don't want to be touching the fingerboard with the file. And what I'm looking for is a nice thin line down the middle. It is very, very close. Just going to get away with this. I'm looking for a nice thin black line down the middle, and I'm going to show you how this file works. You looking at it there, on the bottom you've got a shortcut, on the top you've got a long cut, top long, flip it 180 degrees, bottom you have a long cut, top you have a shortcut. The great thing about this file, it's a diamond file by the way, great thing about this is it will not touch the top of the fret, it'll only cut the edges, the sides, and it's got a shortcut and a long cut, and we swap them around, and what it does is it'll do, one side it'll do a shortcut, a long one, a short sharp, and a long, not so sharp cut. Then you flip it around, it'll do the opposite. So it basically builds up that crown for you. And I'm looking for a nice thin black line down the middle, and I think you should be able to see that that is exactly what I've got. Down the middle of that fret, got a thin black line, less than 0.5 millimetre wide, and that is exactly what we want. So we're just able to crown the frets by the skin of our teeth. I'm going to get my other file, and this is the one I finish off with. Again, this is a diamond file, but this is built to the crown. There you go. And we'll use that just to round everything off, remove any inconsistencies. And again, this will just only ever so lightly skim the top. And in fact it hasn't, and that's what it should do. Look at the thin black line down the middle, and that means we've maintained the height, but we've shaped the edges from being flat to curved, and that is done. And that's the lowest fret. If there's a low fret on the board, that is it. So that's it. So we are fine to level, to crown the frets. We've just got enough. Very, very close, but we've got away with it. So I'm going to get all of it, I'm going to get the whole fingerboard taped up like this. I'm going to crown all of the frets, then we're going to move on to the polishing stage. Did I mention that we are the bare minimum of fret height? It didn't make it more difficult to re-crown these frets because they are so low. Like I say, any lower than that, the frets would have been out, would have been re-fretting this. But anyway, moving on to the polishing. I've got 7 different grits of paper here. 2000 being my finest grit, 2000, 1500, 1200, 1000, 800 and 600. Just making sure I've got the 6 there. So that's the 6. Before I do that, I go across with some 400 grit. Now this is being a lot smaller because it's a lot more, not just a lot more coarse, it's a lot thicker paper. And all we're going to do with this is remove the black lines from the top of the frets. It's quite easy to do, but in removing the black lines, we're also removing the deeper of the scratches, which the scratches run that direction. So I don't need as much paper. This is worth its weight, this paper, because I'll easily do 24 frets with this bit. And this will make polishing much easier. Now we polish 2 reasons. 1, mainly to remove scratches, but 2, also to bring the frets to a beautiful shine. Get rid of all that. Because they do tend to dull slightly. That's why every time you set your guitar up, I recommend you just polish your frets and you treat your fingerboard. But to polish your frets properly, you've got to tape it up like this. But there you go, look at that. And I've already touched the paper. I always wear a glove when polishing because this has got aluminium in it, and that's very, very poisonous. My dad died, we say died of cancer, he actually died of aluminium poisoning. He polished aluminium all his life. He used to come on black from aluminium dust, and we never realised at the time what damage it was doing to him. Well, it killed him. He was riddled with cancer when he died. He didn't even reach 60 years old, my dad. Tragic, very, very sad time. God is bigger. But anyway, back to this. First run just over the top of the frets, just to remove the pen and remove those main scratches. When we actually polish proper, we'll be a lot more in depth in this. We'll polish over the top and in each side. I'll show you a little bit more of that in a short while, but I'm just going to crack on and get this done. Once this is done, I'll come back, I'll start with the 600 grit and I'll show you how I actually polish proper. So moving on to the actual polishing, we've removed all the pen and all the deep scratches by going this way with some coarse 400 grit. Now we're getting to the polishing. There's plenty enough paper there to do 21 frets. In fact, there's enough to do 24. I'll do 8 with the first section, 8 with the middle section, and 8 with the far section. So choose a piece of paper right on the edge there, and we're just going to go place it on the middle. Just go straight across the top. Once we've gone across the top, we can go to the outside, come back over, get to the inside, and back over the top. And that's it. And we're going to do the same for the next 7 before we move across the paper a little bit. So far side, near side, over the top. And there you go, that's 2 done. And I'm going to crack on and get this done. It's going to take me a while. 6 more grits to go, then I've got to come across with the super fine or extra fine steel wool to finish off. It's going to take me a while. I'm going to stick something on my iPad. I'm going to crack on, get this done. I'll give you an update later. So I'm done with the paper grits. 7 grits of paper. Frets are looking really, really nice. Going to finish off with some super fine steel wool. This is the easiest part. Just straight over the top, pinch over the top so you grab the whole of the fret and just vigorously, just a few, and that is totally different to the one next to it. Proper shiner, scratch free, glass like, beautifully smooth and looking beautiful. Not going to take long with a steel wool at all. Just nice and firm. Like I say, just get it over there, just pinch it over, straight over the fret. You're doing the top and both sides all in one go. These frets are wonderful. Got another one of these to do today. That's all I'm doing. 2 fret levels and polishers. Now I did the levelling on this yesterday, but polishing today. We're not far off lunchtime. I've not gone mental at this. I took my time. Got another one to do this afternoon. Both for the same client. Setup on each guitar. Now regarding this one, the Strat needs a setup as well. I'm not going to film a setup. Be 10 a penny guitar setups on my page. A standard setup, floating tremolo, 2-point tremolo on this one on the standard, fulcrum tremolo. Going to have it fully floating, forwards and backwards movement on there, as requested by the owner. That's why I've charged a little bit extra for this over the Ibanez, because the Ibanez doesn't actually have a tremolo. I'll charge a bit extra for setting a tremolo because it takes that a little bit longer. But yeah, you see how I'm getting through this. So I'm going to get this done, whip the tape off. I'll show you the frets before I put the guitar back on the neck, and we'll crack this one off, get it done. Finally, the only good part of fret polishing is peeling off the tape to reveal the frets in their newfound glory. And now you see why I put a strip down the side. It just makes it so much easier to rip the paper off, and there you go. Just got to rip it off from this end. And believe me guys, this looks absolutely fantastic. Those frets are beautiful. So this is all ready, well more or less ready to go back on the guitar. I'm going to stick the nut back in. Here's the nut. Not done anything to the nut yet. I'm just going to sand the edge of the nut, and you'll see down on this bench down here, I just pull it out. It's a flat surface. I have some sandpaper. Can you see from where you are? On the flat surface. All I've got to do is one side, other side. Just give it a little wipe with the sandpaper, and that should go straight back on the guitar. And that, my friends, is wonderful. I'm just going to drop a little bit of super glue down each side of the nut to build up where we might have any lacquer damage. We don't actually have any lacquer damage. And that is really, really nice. Just need to tap that just a little bit, just to knock it across a tiny bit. Again, using the nylon side of my fretting hammer. Just to make sure that we are flush both sides. A little tap. And let me just show you the knot and how flush that knot is. Flush and flush. Just beautiful. So I just want to show the state of the neck now I have levelled the frets, crowned and polished them. Doesn't it look fantastic? And it does look fantastic, but that is not the whole story. Now these frets were probably just on the cusp of, they're really too low. to recrown, even though I've done a fantastic job there. They're not too well, I say they're too low, they kind of are and they kind of aren't. They are 0.8mm height left on there now. Any lower I would not be able to do them. It was still very, very difficult. And the reason it's difficult is, and like I said to you, this looks brilliant. Yeah, it does look brilliant from where you are. But when you get right close into the frets here, you see that the lacquer is slightly, well, you can't see it. Even I can't see it close up. But the thing is, when I was filing these frets and recrowning them, I could feel the lacquer. Now the lacquer builds up the frets about halfway up. And when you're filing this low down on them, you're cracking the lacquer and ripping the lacquer off. Now fortunately I had the whole neck taped up, so it's not caused any damage. But if you looked closely with a magnifying glass, you would see that right at the bottom of these frets there is lacquer, and it's going up the fret, but it's cracked and it's jagged. And this is why I always recommend we re-lacquer a neck after especially after a refret. I mean, it's not so bad on a fret level because it's not caused any great damage, but if I was pulling these frets out, the lacquer would have been damaged right at the side of the frets. And like I say, in future, when I refret these, I'm basically insisting that you have a respray, and I'm charging accordingly. A lacquered neck from now on is going to be £300 for a refret before you add on the price of a fret wire and the nut. It's the only way I can do it, otherwise I'm not going to do it. And I'll tell you what, send it to somebody else, you take it to someone else, they're going to charge you the same. I am in cohorts with my good friend Danny Lint, based down in, he's not far from Loughborough. Danny Lint is now Leicestershire Luthier, or LeicesterShireLuthiers.co.uk. Danny and Natalie Lint. Danny was Nigel Roberts' understudy, apprentice for 12 years, 10, 12 years. And what Nigel Roberts doesn't know about luthiery, whatever, building guitars and setting up guitars, you can write on the head of the pin and still have room for the Lord's Prayer. Nigel Roberts, great master of guitar building in my mind. I've known Nigel, not known him that long, 5, 6 years. Met him when I first started doing this professionally. I went down to meet him a few times. Used to go and see him every 6, 7 months. What a fantastic guy. Always shared his knowledge. Brilliant guy to be with. And Danny was working, he'd been working with Nigel for quite a long time, but Nigel is now retired. Danny is now taken over. And Danny and his wife Nat now run LeicesterShireLuthiers.co.uk. Used to be Leicestershire Luthiers, now Leicestershire Luthiers. And me and Danny get together. Me, Danny, Nat, and my wife Michelle, because Natalie, Danny's wife, and my wife Michelle, they're both Canadian, so we've got that in common. And me and Danny both having football and guitars in common. We're a good foursome, and we get together now and again, quite regularly actually, and we socialise, we get together, and of course me and Danny talk about guitars and the jobs we do. And our prices are more or less in line with each other. We talk about what we charge, why we charge what we charge, and you know, and we swap tips and swap ideas and talk about, you know, the job, in the job basically. So my prices are in line with Danny, so I'm going to talk to Danny about this, seeing what he's going to say. I think he's going to say exactly the same. He's in the same mind as me on stainless steel refrets. We both don't love doing stainless steel. Nobody loves doing stainless steel refrets. Harder works, harder on the tools, blah blah blah, whatever. And Danny was asked to do a stainless steel refret, and he thought, I don't really want to do this. I'm going to ask a stupid amount and see what he says. And he just told the guy, he says, £350. And the guy just said, yeah, do it. So that's where Danny is with that at the moment. And we're saying stainless steel refret, we're talking £300 before the price of your fret wire and your nut. Now stainless steel fret wire is expensive, so you're looking for a stainless steel refret, you're looking at £350. My price is in line with Danny's. I'm sure we're going to have our prices in line on these. He's pretty much of the same mind as me, that it's very, very difficult to refret a lacquered board without having to respray it again. So I'm going to insist on that in future. Got away with it because we're only doing a level here, and it does look wonderful. But I'm going to drop off this one now. All I need to do is now put the bits back on, put the neck on the guitar and set the guitar up. But I have a second guitar from this client. And I'm going to blob onto the second one. I'm going to finish this one in the morning. I'm going to put the neck back on the guitar in the morning. I'll finish set, because this is only going to need a setup now. So I'm going to skim on the setup. I'm not going to film everything. I'm just going to get it done and we'll finish that video off. So next time you see this guitar, it will be back, or next time you see this neck, it will be back on the guitar, and I'm likely going to have strings on. So back with that one later. I think I said in my last part, I'm going to set this up and not show you. Well, I've changed my mind. And the reason I've changed my mind is, most of you are setting Strat tremolos up wrong. I asked the owner how I wanted it setting up, and he says floating please. I thought, right, okay. Now most people think floating means up off the base of a body, horizontal, but off the base, so you can pull it forwards and maybe tilt back a little. That is not the right way to set up a Stratocaster tremolo. You don't set them horizontal to the body. I'm going to show you this way. You actually set them up leaning forwards like so. See if I can just do it. I'll do it this on the side. See that there? You don't do it horizontal to the body. You actually lean it forwards, and I'll tell you why, and I'll show you why, and I'll prove to you why. The reason we have it tilting forwards is we can use the tremolo that way, tilting forwards dive bombing. We can also pull back that way. And another reason we have it tilting forwards is so these holes line up with the back plate, and you'll find that the back plate, this hole on the back plate, this is normally the wrong side of it, and you can't thread the strings through. But when you set it up properly like this, it is lined up perfectly with the plate. So when you change the strings, you change the strings through that hole there. That's what that hole's for. So so that tremolo is set up absolutely right. That is the correct position. I'm just watching I don't smash my front window with the guitar, because the headstock's near the front window, but there you go. So that is why we set it up leaning forward like that. Now, in that position, exactly in that position where it ought to be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten these claw spring, this claw up, so the springs pull more than we need to do. You'll see I've placed some Fret Friend business cards underneath to hold that tremolo in the exact position I need it to be for the correct setup. So I'm going to grab a screwdriver, and hopefully you can see everything I'm doing. And I'm just going to tighten up these claw springs. I could have put another spring in. I'm going to tighten these up just so it pulls more than the string tension needs to be. And because that's pulled in so tight now, that bridge is in exactly the right position to be set up. That's how I want the bridge when it's set up. It's how it's going to be when I pull the business cards out. But we get that extra tension on there just to hold it in place. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at the action at the 12th fret. First thing we're going to look at is the action at the 12th fret. So I'm going to be looking at 1.75mm on the bass side, 1.5mm on the treble side. So I will get my string action gauge there, which will give me that measurement. And I'm just going to tip the guitar on its side, have a look where I am. And we are exactly at 1.75 on that side. And on the far side we are at, I don't know because I can't see, I'm going to have to stand up. And we are slightly under 1.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alter this saddle just here, bring it up a little bit. Because what we're going to do first is we are going to set the radius on the bridge. Not even going to look at intonation yet, not interested in the intonation. So this being an American, it's going to be, I believe, 1/16 of an inch? I think 1/16 of an inch. I'm not zooming in. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing from where you are from that distance away. So we have the tremolo where I need it. What we're going to do is we're going to set the radius here. So what we need to do is set the two outside saddles to the correct height. We already know this one's at the correct height. I just want to slacken that off a bit because I want it dead straight. I want it horizontal, not arced. We make an arc with these, but we don't arc with saddles. We have them straight. So I'm going to need to bring the treble side up just a nudger. For whatever reason, this one seems to be sliding out to the right. I don't know why. I'm going to bring it back to the left like that. And I'm going to keep checking that height until I've got it how I want it. Okay, we're still low on that side, so again, I'm going to bring this saddle up until it's where I want it. Now you'll notice I've not checked the relief in the neck. That is because I have a rule. If your neck is straight, which this was, with the truss rod just slightly nipped, when you put strings on, the string tension will pull it up to the right amount of relief. And on that assumption, I'm setting up from there. I'm going to check it in a moment. Right, we are 1.5 on the treble side. We are just over 1.75 on the bass side. I'm just going to drop the bass side just a tiny bit. Not a lot, just a bit. So it might about going a little bit higher on the initial setup because I've not looked at the nut slots yet. Right, we are 1.75, okay? So we have the two outside saddles exactly where they need to be in relation to the height or the action at the 12th fret. Now, I'm not taking into consideration I'm going to need to cut these nut slots a little bit deeper. So, to totally contradict what I've just done, I'm going to bring these up a little bit more. Probably almost 0.5 millimetre each side. And probably a little bit less than that. I'm just going to bring up, but that's above one. That's about 1.9. I'm going to take it to about 1.7. Reason being, I've got nut slots to cut yet. So I'll check that again. Okay, that's 2. That's 1.75, exactly where I want to be. Because I've got a couple of nut slots, it's going to bring the action down a little bit. So I'm just going to check the action at the 6th fret, or the relief, amount of relief at the 6th fret. Like I say, with just a little bit of tension on the truss rod, tiny nip, with the neck dead straight. Once we get the strings on, that should pull it to about 0.25 millimetres under the 6th fret. That's the amount of relief I go with. Just going to check it, and if it's round about there, I'm happy with that. Right, let's go. Yeah, that's pretty good. 5th fret, yeah, scraping well there. 7th fret, scraping there. Really happy with that. That's worked exactly as it ought to. So we now have the right amount of relief in the neck. We have the strings set at the 1st and 6th string. So to set the radius on the rest, what we're going to do is we're going to bring these up. We're going to bring these over what they need to be, and we're going to get a radius gauge under there, and we're going to drop them on the top of the radius gauge just to match the radius of the neck. We are a 9.5 inch radius, should I say? I'm assuming we're 9.5. Sure, we're 9.5. Regardless, we always set the saddles to 9.5 anyway, we don't set them to 7.25. With strings 1 and 6 set, once we drop these onto the radius gauge, we have all of them set. These are the 2 we measured from, because we've got the right height there, right height, so we've got the right height here. We're going to drop these onto the top of the radius gauge. So I'm going to grab a radius gauge. I'm hoping you can see from there. May as well show you how to do this all in one go. These measurements are my measurements. They are standard as far as I'm concerned. They're the measurements I always use. Some of you may disagree, but anyway, 9.5 inch radius gauge under the strings there. The good thing is we've got 1 and 6 of the measurement. We've got everything else is slightly above where it needs to be. So all we're going to do is we're going to drop each string back onto the top of the radius gauge. This one's a little bit low actually. No, it isn't. It's fine. Going to drop each string onto the top of the radius gauge. Not bothered about saddles being dead straight just yet. I can sort that out afterwards. Not bothered about being in tune just yet. Right, that's those 2 are pretty good. Yep. Just dropping these right onto the top of the radius gauge there. It's why we take the radius underneath, because it's the bottom of the string we're concerned with. It's the bottom of the string in relation to the fingerboard, or specifically at the frets. So we have a radius matched completely under the strings. It now means that this radius at the bridge is the same as a radius at the neck, and hopefully a radius at the nut. So I'm going to check the saddles. I'm going to see it looks like a mouthful of mashed up teeth. We need to make sure these are level. So if I'm going to turn this down a quarter turn, I'm going to turn the other side up a quarter. So I'm going to go exactly a quarter down and a quarter up. That's now horizontal and straight. This one's going to need about an 1/8 down and an 1/8 up. This is one go about maybe 1/16 up and just a tiny little bit down. And this one looks pretty much bang on. Just go up just a little, down just a little on this side. Notice how I went from a quarter to an 1/8 to a 1/16 to a little. These are all legitimate measurements, of course. And then we're going to check again, get right underneath. Well, everything's right except the G is a little bit high. Everything else is spot on. So we now have a radius set on the bridge or the tremolo. Just slightly alter that one. Yep, happy with that. Just a little turn on this one here. And that's it, happy with that. So we now have the strings radius set there, matching the radius that we're not, the radius above the fingerboard. We have a right action at the 12th fret, we have the right amount of relief. That means all we need to do now is we need to stretch the strings in. Once that's done and it's in tune, we're going to look at the nut slots. Nut slots look actually quite okay. We might be fine where they are. That was a bit of A string's a bit high. But like I said, I'm just going to check the action at the 12th fret again. One thing I've not mentioned yet is the intonation. I've not checked the intonation. I'm going to do that next because we're going to get the saddles in the right place. And once the saddles are in the right place, we're going to check the radius again. So with this job, you're always altering things and checking things again. This is not static, this is not set. Even though we've got the radius right there, it's not set yet because we don't have the intonation set. So what we're going to do is going to bring the guitar to pitch, or strings to pitch. I'm going to grab me a guitar lead. And it's going to be ever so slightly out of pitch because the guitar's laying down. It does make a difference. Playing position is always the best way to tune your guitar in. But for the sake of setting the intonation, I can do it laying down. The difference is not going to be measurable whether we're on a perfect E or we're at E and a cent or two above where it needs to be. So bear with me while I just bring it close. Now because I've not stretched the strings in yet, I'm going to stretch them, tune it in again. It means I'm going to be putting slightly more pull on the headstock, so it is possible that the amount of relief in the neck will change, so we may have to give the truss rod another little bit of a turn to straighten it out. But we're just going to, from where we are, I'm going to set the intonation from here. That is a laying down flat E. It's probably going to be a little bit out if I bring it to playing position. Tiny, only a tiny bit sharp, but I'm glad it's a bit sharp because that saddle is a little bit close to the bridge pin or the tremolo post. It's nice. So I had to remember which way to move the saddle when we're sharp or flat at the 12th fret. It's really easy. If we're sharp, looking at it from this way, is my left hand, is my right hand. If the note on the 12th fret is flat, 4 letters, we move this saddle to the left, 4 letters. If the note on the 12th fret is sharp, 5 letters, we move the saddle to the right, 5 letters. So it's really, really easy to remember. It's the way I've always remembered it. And it works. Only if you set your guitar up this way though. I hope someone that little tiplet there. Again, slightly sharp on the B. So we need to move the saddle to the right. Good. Everything's a little bit sharp. Oh, I'm going to struggle moving this G. Oh, just enough there. That's nice, everything else is bang on, so I'm really pleased with that. So now we have the radius set. I'm going to just check the radius again because we have slightly moved those saddles, a couple of them back a little bit. It could alter the radius. We'll just have a look. We need to be within 1/10 of a millimetre and we'll be alright if it's just a small amount, but it should be. Let's have a look in there, get that right in there like so. That is bang on. Absolutely lovely. You can check the height of that G string. That means it's higher in the nut slot, I think, and it is very high in the nut slot. So we're going to leave that as is because we're going to alter these nut slots shortly. So really pleased with that. So now I need to stretch the strings in. And we're going to stretch that end because this is going to put a little bit more tension on the neck. It will slightly alter the amount of relief. But I do like to stretch these strings as much as possible without snapping them. There you go, so we basically stretch them in two stretches from a G. Or we stretch them down to a G and we've got to bring it back up to an almost full octave back up. You have to stretch all of the stretch out of the strings when you're setting up a tremolo, otherwise as soon as you hit that tremolo it's going to go out of tune. It's a precision thing. I get so many guitars in where they're saying it won't stay in tune. I say, how many times you stretch the strings? And they go once. I say, well, there's your problem. Stretch them 6 times if you have to. Especially Floyd Roses. I see it all the time, people saying, oh, it's Floyd Roses rubbish, never stay in tune. Well, you've not stretched all the stretch out of the strings, have you? I love Floyd Roses, but you've got to set them up right. You have to set tremolos up right, it's a balancing act. It's neck tension versus spring tension, or string tension versus spring tension. I normally find 2 stretches are enough. So I'm going to crack on with this. But you know what, I'm going to keep the camera running. So you can see what goes into it. Now I will not be stretching the top 2 strings as much as this because they'll snap. I have to replace them, and they charge something like £2 for a single string nowadays. I don't pay £5 a set because I buy in bulk. This is really high in the knot. I'm not going to release the tremolo until I've cut the nut, by the way. I want all the setup done right before we remove, or before we set the tremolo proper. Because there's no point releasing the tremolo or setting that up properly until everything else on the top end is set. Always leave the nut slots till last. This is where it gets a little bit dicey. Fortunately, we've got a spring pull on the tremolo, which means it's going to stop us snapping strings normally. You can stretch these, don't go mental. these are the ones I really hate stretching these, the 9s and the 10s. Don't take the mickey with these. So that is the setup almost done. We have the right height at the 12th fret, we have the saddles and intonation set at the bridge, we have the right amount of relief. I'm just going to check that again because we have tightened the strings. It is possible it's just given us a bit more relief than we need. All we'll have to do with that is just tighten that truss rod and nip, and it should bring everything back into line. We shouldn't have to alter anything. We will find we're a little bit high on the 12th fret still, but that's because I've not cut the nut slots to the correct depth yet. That is always the last job you do before you set the tremolo springs or the counter pull or the counterbalance. A little bit loose under there. So we're going to take a 1/8 of an inch Allen wrench, which is the size of a truss rod adjuster on a Strat, and we are going to move these strings out of the way, and we're going to give it probably a 1/4 turn. Strings back. We're not bothered about tension or tuning at the moment. Tension's pretty close to where we need it to be anyway. Okay, that looks a little bit low. That's fine. It is at the 5th. Trying to knock us over at the 6th. It's nice at the 7th. It's a little loose. I'm quite happy with that. So again, we're going to check the action at the 12th fret with everything set right. We are just under 2 mil there, and we are just over 1.5 there. Still very, very good. Now, if we need to bring it half a millimetre down at the 12th fret, we need to bring it down a full millimetre at the nut. We're not going to bring it anywhere near a millimetre. We're probably going to bring this down about 0.3 mil. That equates to 0.15 millimetres at the 12th fret, which is what we're about over. So we're not going to need to remove a lot from a nut, but what we're going to do is we are going to cut the nut slots now. I'll leave the tuner plugged in. I'm going to need some, maybe a strip of leather would be nice under there. Now I'm going to get a little bit of tape. I'm just going to attempt to thread some tape through 2 layers of tape, or 2 layers of tape. I'm using this Scotch Free and Blue stuff, just gubbins. I'm going to tear it down the centre, well not down the centre, I'm going to tear it there, tear it there. I'm going to double these up. I'm going to grab a feeler gauge, and what we're going to do is with this, we're just going to drag it through, bring it up to the strings, and just tape it down, tape everything down there. We're going to use the Allen wrench just when I cut the nut slots, in case I slip with the file and I catch the edge. I don't be catching the back edge of this fingerboard behind the nut. So we're going to take a feeler gauge just to press everything down there. But that's if I hit anything wrong with the file, I'm going to hit the tape. And there you go. I could have put that on there before I put strings on the guitar. Maybe would have been a better idea, but I didn't do that. So there you go. So that's done. So last part, well, second to last part of the setup, we're going to look at the height or the gap between the bottom of the string and the top of the fret. And I do have certain measurements I like to set up to, and I'll tell you those in a moment. I'm just going to grab up my files. Here they are. We do have a 942 set of strings on the guitar, Ernie Ball Slinky, so we need to get the 942 set of files out. These are Hosco files, best of the best. These cut a perfect round slots, not a V like the cheaper ones. These are Hosco. And I've used these for years, but on the higher strings, the 10s and the 13s, they do cut more of a V than a circle, so I stopped using them. I'll use these in a pinch to cut a slot to depth, but I'll do the rounding off with this. It depends how much material I've got to remove. So I'm going to grab a 942 set. So correct me if I'm wrong. We don't have a 9, we have a 10. We don't have an 11, but we have a 13. And that should be a 15 or a 16. We do have a 16, I believe. Just making out a lie because I can't find it. 28, 30, there's a 16. So that's so we're using 10 for a 9, 13 for an 11, 16 for a 15. Then we should have a 42, 32, 24. Here's a 42, here's a 24, and here's a 32. So that is your 9, basically as close as you can get to a 9 set. But using a 10 for a 9 and a 13 for an 11 is not going to make that much difference. And using a 24 for a 20, well 24, no, it is 24, 32, 42. So we're right there. So, measurements. This is how I like to do it. On the bass side, the gap, we're talking about the gap from top of fret to bottom of string, 0.3 millimeters on the bass side, 0.2 millimeters on the treble side. We could go down to 0.1, 0.125 or something nice and low like that. I just set these at like a standard lowish setting. So 0.3 to 0.2 is absolutely fine. Everything's gonna play the right notes on your F and your F sharp. It's not going to go sharp. Certainly would go sharp with these because these gaps are really quite big. So we're going to take a measure. I'm going to want a 0.3 and I'll tell you how I work the measurements out. So 0.3 this side. I just want to hear a slight buzz. Hardly any there. So I need to bring that one down. This one I want about 0.275. So I want a good buzz. No buzz yet. That's me 0.3. This one I'd want down to a 0.25. It's 0.3 going under. Can't hear anything. So these all need to drop down a little. On the far side, I would like a 0.25 again here, 0.22 on the B and 0.2 on the E. I've got a 0.25 in my hand. No, but that's well high. That's well high. And that's well high. So we need to cut all of the nut slots. Now I need to be steady-handed enough so I don't drop the file onto the frets and scratch the frets because they've all been polished. So I want to try and keep the fret or the file horizontal, if anything, or maybe even just slightly angle it down towards a headstock, which is the best way. So I'm going to do exactly that. And the 42, you've heard the saying, measure twice, cut once. In this case, measure 15 times and cut once. Measure as many times as you need to. Do not remove too much material because you have to take the nut out and replace it, and that's long-winded, it takes a while, and it's going to cost you money. So 0.42 on this one. I shall take the file, just show you there, 0.042. Don't need to go down, don't need to file a lot, so we're just going to remove the string. We'll take the file ever so steady. I'm going to need a cloth for this because I need to make sure the files are clean, which they are, because I always clean them. And ever so gently, with a steady hand, place the file into the slot, horizontal with the strings, and just ever so gently, just a few strokes. Angle it slightly back and back. And that removed hardly anything there at all. But we have gone flatter, so we know we remove material. Just starting to buzz, that's nice. We know we remove material because the file is white. Again, taking our time, nice and horizontal, thumb as a guide, just a couple of strokes. Slightly angle it down toward the tuner and back. And you see there, I just nipped the tape there, just nipped the tape, look. Not gone into the wood, but it has nipped the tape. And that's what we're looking for. Don't go any deeper than that. And there you go, let's have a feel. Back to pitch. Check for buzz, 0.3. Perfect. Next one, 0.25, so we're going to want a bigger buzz. So we're going to make sure we're in tune. 0.32 file. So we're going to clean the file, put it back in its case, or its sheath, like so. Always keep your files clean, it will last you years. 0.32, again same horizontal, using your thumb as a guide, just a few strokes, angle back slightly, another couple more strokes, just so a little bit of bone dust drop out there. Checking your file, you can see the white on there, string back in and just keep checking. We're looking for more of a buzz on the 0.3. Still nothing, so I know we've got fair ways to go on that one. Just buzzing. So now I'm going to change over to a 0.25 because I'm looking for 0.75 there. So if I get a very slight buzz on a 0.25, I know I'm where I want to be. Not yet, we can go a little bit deeper. And we're just slightly gradiating down towards a 0.2. So again, nice and steady. Make sure we've got the right file, just a couple of strokes. And I think we'll find that we're where we need to be. So I'm at 0.25, just waiting for a little buzz here. Happy with that. Next one, 0.25 exactly. Don't need to remove a lot from this one. It's very, very close to where it wants to be. Again, file horizontal, just that much, angle slightly down to the tuners. All we're doing with this one really is just making sure that's flared open wide enough, and that should be it. Just buzzing, that's perfect. Not buzzing this side. Still need to go a little bit deeper. And there's still a little bit more. Always just keep checking, take your time. It's better to go not too deep. You don't want to be replacing the nuts. Sometimes these files do go a little bit blunt, or they don't cut as well. Very, very slight buzz. I think we're gonna do there. Next one. So 15, that's very high. I do believe I was using the wrong file on that one. I wasn't using the 24. Just gonna go back and check again. Good thing about it is it's not going to make that much difference. This is the 24. And we have removed material with that one, definitely. Just to show that even I make mistakes, we all make mistakes. Good thing is we haven't gone too low regardless. So we'll go a tad more. So I'm going to leave all of that in, not edited any of that out. I bet you're all looking at this video thinking, it's not changed the file, it's not changed the file. Well, that's a good job the other file wasn't cutting too much, wasn't it? And there you go. Should be getting a nice buzz on the 2.5 now. Perfect. We're going to want the same amount of buzz on this one. So let's put this one back in its case. Package, sheath. Sheath, it sounds so Alan Partridge. So we're going to need this 16, which is this one. Angling back, never touch the tape on the last two, just slightly touch the tape on the first one. But anyway, the 16. So again, nice and gentle. Slightly angled back. The string, I believe, is it a 14 or a 15? Oh, I've got a long way to go on that one. Don't go gung-ho. I've done that thinking I've got a long way to go, I can go a little bit gung-ho. You do that, all of a sudden you're too deep, you're placing the knot. Getting close now. Again, always cleaning your file. Oh, that's looking good. With the eye, that looks good to me. Decent buzz. Yep, happy with that. Two more to do. We've got the 13 and the 10, or should I say the 11 and the 9. We're always looking, by the way, to cut horizontally, then just a little stroke backwards, just to basically round it over toward the tuner. If we haven't got the nut slot cut correctly, we'll get a sitar sound from the string, and it means we've not cut the slot straight, or we've not got any angle back. Normally I go straight, then just one swoop with an angle back slightly. Always been enough in the past. You'll get used to it. You'll learn how to do it. So 13, we're going to check this one. I'm going to be going with, I'm going to check with the 0.25, where I want to be dropping this down to getting close to 0.2. It's quite high, this one. So going with 13, I want to be seeing dust with this one, bone dust. And I see a little there, not enough, but I see a little. And let's just drop the string in and have a look, because it is very, very easy to cut these too low. We're still too high. Yeah, I could see we're too high there. That's looking good. Looking for a good buzz. Not there yet, but we are now buzzing. It's about 0.225 on this one. So between 0.25 and 0.2. And I think that will be just about there. Not quite buzzing enough yet. I'm just going to drop down to the 0.2 because that's the one I'm going to be using on the E. Or first string. But looking with the eye, it's looking quite nice. We could go down to 0.1 if we wanted to. Why temp fade. I'm happy with that one. I'm going to move on to the last one. Still quite high on that one. So we've got a final one, the 10. So we can go a little bit more, I wouldn't say exactly gung-ho, but we can certainly wait till we see bone dust either side of the nut. You don't necessarily have to see dust, by the way, it could hide away. Well, we've certainly gone flatter, so we know we're getting close, but we're still quite high with that one. I'm going to turn the file around, do it slightly backwards, because this is dead straight on this edge. And I'm seeing bone dust, that's telling me to stop. And it's looking pretty good, still looking a little bit too high. And it still is too high. And I'm seeing bone dust again. Make sure we go under the string tree. And that's looking bang on to me with the eye. We just want to hear a little buzz. And we don't yet. One more, just one more stroke. I'm not bothered about that. 0.22 is also fine. And we are there. So I'm happy with the height above the first fret. I'm just going to clean that file, put it away, and then we are going to go and check the action at the 12th fret again. We should now be 1.75, 1.5 or very, very close. If my calculations are right. You get to know where to set these things. So let's have a look. I'm going to leave the tuner in because I've got to tune the guitar properly yet anyway. Just going to have a look at the bass side. Okay, we are slightly high there now. We're still over 2. And on the treble side, we are exactly 1.5. I'm really quite happy with that. I don't mind being a little bit high on the bass side. Going to check the tune in, see where we are. I'm going to stretch the strings in again. Remember, I was tuning this in laid flat, so it's always sharp when you pick it back up. Now in playing position. Sounds nice. So quite happy with that. Maybe I'm just going to drop this bass side just a little bit. 1.85 would be good. We're also going to drop the next string along just a tad, half as much as the bass, and that means we're going to maintain the radius just about. So we'll tune those 2 strings in. I'm just leaving the tape, I'm leaving the tape running So it's like a live video for you lot, and people quite like these. I've never got round to doing a live session yet. It's something I may consider in the future. Let me just, and there you go, we're at 1.85 there, that's fine. Now, two more things I've got, well, three things I've got to do. One, I'm going to stretch the strings in again, but before I do that, I'm going to check the radius again at the bridge, just to make sure everything is right. For the sake of one more minute, let's get it spot on. Okay, we are a little bit high on the D string, G string should I say. That's because we've lowered the bass side just a little. So we're just going to lower that down. The D is a tiny bit high. And there you go, we have a radius matched there, that's beautiful. So just before we set the tremolo, we are going to stretch the strings again. I'm just going to nip to the loo. I'll be back in less than a minute. Just remind you guys the importance of still washing your hands and hand sanitising as many times a day as you can, well, as you ought. I'm a postman and I'm currently off work because I'm CEV, clinically extremely vulnerable, but through last year, lockdown, I worked through it and I didn't catch COVID and I've now had a jab anyway, but we constantly, postmen, constantly having to clean our hands and use our sanitiser. And it's still important, just because lockdown's coming to an end by the end of March, they say, possibly, let's not relax. We relaxed before and we got COVID back again, didn't we? So let's keep washing our hands, keep hand sanitising. I have loads of hand sanitiser in this room. I've got one, I've got two, that's my work one, and I've got three. There you go. Hand sanitise, keep it going. Let's beat this virus. You know, over 100,000 people are dead. But anyway, back to where we are with the guitar. So, I'm going to stretch the strings back in. First, I'm going to try and remove this. Not an easy feat with strings on the guitar. But I'll put that on before I do the strings next time. But there you go. That's it. You see, you're not seeing from where you are, but we have not touched the edge of the fingerboard where it meets the headstock. Can be done quite easily to do. And that's nice and clean there. So we're going to stretch the strings in one more time. Tune it on. I don't know how long this video is going to go on for. Not really matters. So stretch the strings in one more time because we're going to set the tremolo after this last stretch. Setting the tremolo again, it's another thing. So one more stretch. For the Floyd Rose, I'll be doing more stretching than this. But this means the guitar's had time to relax and set itself, and the next nice set. Nice and steady on these two. Because we're going to set the tremolo. Before I set the tremolo, I'm going to have to move all these tools out of the way. Something I could have done after I nipped to the toilet, but I wanted to turn the camera back on, show you that nothing had been moved. So right, there we are. Stick the files away. Way. Tools at this end. Get all the tools out of the way, everything doesn't need to be about. Right, so I am going to need a screwdriver, but not that one. I'm going to need a long screwdriver for setting the tremolo. We have two. I did have two long screwdrivers. Where's that in? She is. Hide it down there. That's what I'm going to be using for setting the tremolo. Just make sure I get everything out of the way. And one more thing, I'm going to check the relief again at this 6th, 7th fret. We're looking for 0.25, round about 0.2, 0.25 is good. 0.25 is as much as I want to be going. 0.2 is fine. Don't want to go anything above 0.25. Just touching. And 5th fret. Yeah, scraping nicely. So we have the action set of a relief set beautifully in the neck. So I'm happy with all of that. All the tools out of the way. We'll put the control plate just over here. I've got the screws over here. Just to show we're setting everything up right. Here's the screws. Right then, so what's going to happen when I release the business cards from under the tremolo? You know exactly what's going to happen. The tremolo is probably going to pull back and everything's going to go sharp. And that's exactly what's going to happen because we tightened the claw screws at the back, didn't we? Remind you, claw screw, we tightened those at the back. So I'm going to remove the business cards. I hope you can see where you are. I'm going to remove the business cards. Just stick one in fact we'll hear it. Now we're really, really sharp. So how do we get that back? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to release the tension on the claw, and once this A string drops back into tune, all the other strings should drop back into tune. So what we need to do is we've got the tuner back in. The A is now a B, the E is now a sharp F sharp, this E is now, I don't know where it is, it's not telling us. But anyway, we're sharp. So what we need to do now is we're going to loosen these two claw screws here until that A drops in to being an A again. So we're going to go a little bit gung-ho on this. And once this is fallen back to this right position, we're going to just use the A string. So I'm going to hold the guitar in this position. We're going to use the A, and as I release these screws at the back, the tremolo is going to tilt forward toward the neck. And once it's in the correct position, everything should fall back into place. And everything should be in tune. And this is how we set a tremolo. Same for Floyd Rose, it's the way we set Floyd Rose as well. So the A is a little bit flat, E is flat, G is flat, everywhere's flat. So I've gone too far. So what I'll do now is I'm going to just slightly tighten these screws again. See where we are. A is sharp, D is bang on, B is bang on, G is bang on, E is flat, E is bang on. So just check again. Just check I'm getting everything straight. I will stretch these strings again with the tremolo as it is, and we'll tune again. Very minor adjustments. We are in perfect tune, and let me show you where the bridge is again, and it's gone back into the right position. We are tilted forwards. To show you there, I'm just watching the front window. I'm about a foot from the front window, I'm too cautious. But there you go, see how it's tilted forwards there, the bridge? And that's fantastic. So if I stick the back plate back on the guitar now, this tremolo should line up exactly with these holes, which it does, which means we can change the string without moving the tremolo anywhere. We've got a perfectly floating tremolo set properly, the right way, the way Fender show you how to set it. A lot of people thinking floating means horizontal. It doesn't, not a Fender. All Fenders point forwards. I do appear to have lost a pickguard, not a pickguard, a tremolo copper screw. So I've got it here. Don't panic. Don't panic. Don't panic. So that is how you set up Fender Strat with a tremolo. Most of them have tremolos. It's same for the 6-screw tremolo. Instead of the fulcrum one like this one, which is 2 posts, you set the one exactly the same. I think PRS is set pretty much the same as well, except PRS is slightly different because that they sit on 6 pins and all 6 pins have to be lined up. The 6 screws on the Fender version don't have to be lined up, it's just the 2 outside ones are your pivots, and your 4 middle screws you turn a quarter turn back. But because you've got a pivot on the PRS, everything sits on that pivot, so everything has to be perfectly horizontal. That's another bridge we'll cross when we come to it in the future. So there you go. Just going to give this, get all the tools out of the way. Let's not have any accidents. Accidents happen when tools are in the way. That's why I no longer lift tools over a guitar. You like to drop them. All my tools are this side of the bench. So we're just going to take the guitar, we're going to grab a nice clean cloth, just going to give it a wipe. Back into the playing position. Plug the tuner back in. Sorry you can't see the guitar right now, I'm bending down picking the lead up off the floor, as you do. We're just going to check the tune in. And that's it, we are all done. I'm going to move the camera and we're going to tie this video up. Right friends, did you get all that? Did you enjoy that? That is how to properly set up a Fender Stratocaster and the Fender Tremolo. Any of the tremolos, the fulcrum ones like this one, which is on 2 posts, or the 6-point tremolo, which is a 6-screw version. That is how we set up a a tremolo. So let's recap what we did. This came in for, frets were terrible. It nearly needed a refret. I was very, very close to giving it a refret. The frets were that low. I could not have recrammed these if they were any lower. And I actually, by rights, I should have given it a refret. It was really, really hard work for me. But we have leveled the frets. Sorry, leveled, recrowned, and polished. We've given it a complete setup. We have remove the nut, put the nut back in, cut the nut slots, set the guitar up. One thing I've not done yet is set the pickup height. They're looking okay, they need to be a little bit higher, but the best thing is setting up the tremolo properly, so it is properly floating, leaning forward. It means we've got pull back, we can pull back or we can drop down, and the string holes there line up perfectly with that hole. They don't if you have this horizontal. You can't restring it, a set plate off. So that is why we set it that way. Beautiful guitar, 2008 Fender Stratocaster or Standard Stratocaster, beautiful thing. This has the Delta tone mod, no load pot there. You also have the bridge pickup wired in with the middle on the tone, so it's middle and bridge tone, neck tone, no load, which bypasses all the tone mods or the tone pots on there. So I'm just watching my neighbour pull out his car and watching it doesn't hit my Jag, as you do, and a master volume. So yeah, great thing, beautiful guitar, but that one is done. So we're going to move on to the next project. This is the first of 2 guitars Glyn and Liam bought in. The second one I'm doing just after this, we're just going to set that one up as well. But before I do go, we are finished with this. We're just about finished with the other one. Just need to remind you my websites before I go. fretfriend.co.uk, or even better, facebook.com/ng17. That's facebook.com/NGONESEVEN. I am Victor, I am your fret friend, and until the next time, as always, God bless you, be good to each other, and I'll see you in the next one.